Welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Ledrian Roby, Superintendent of Grand Rapids Public Schools. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to review the agenda for the strategic planning process, the findings from the strategic analysis, the draft of the strategic planning framework, and the process for gathering input tonight. The majority of the time will be spent in small group discussions where your input will be gathered. All input will be noted, reviewed, and categorized and used to refine the strategic planning framework prior to the November 8th school board meeting. Our strategic planning process includes 3 phases. We are wrapping up our analysis phase, and we will provide you with a brief overview of the findings tonight. We are moving into the strategy development phase, working with a broad group of over 100 community members to develop the draft framework for our strategic plan. We have drafted some initial concepts for the strategic plan. We are testing the strategic plan framework with our community through sessions such as this. Only after we receive our community's input, we will move to the next steps of crafting specific initiatives and action plans for implementation. Our strategic plan will also incorporate a monitoring and reporting process to measure our progress and report back to the community. The detailed findings from our analysis phase are provided on the GRPS website as a presentation and video. Today, I'm going to just highlight a few of the key areas that contribute to the strategic planning framework. Student performance in English language arts and math has increased slightly in 3rd grade over the past 5 years. In other grades, student results have remained flat. Student performance is higher in English language arts than in math. Not all of our students are performing at the same levels. It is important to understand how different types of students are performing in Grand Rapids Public Schools. We wanted to examine how race, ethnicity, and income influence student success. As you can see on this chart, students who are Asian and white meet and exceed standards in math at substantially higher rates than others. In this chart, we're also looking at students who are economically disadvantaged as measured by participating in free and reduced lunch. Here we see that this pattern remains true even for students who are not economically disadvantaged. So while the economic disadvantaged students of all races and ethnicities perform at lower levels, students who are African American, Hispanic, multiracial, and Native American are achieving at substantially lower rates regardless of economic status. While I am highlighting math on this chart, the same pattern exists for English language arts. It is also important to consider student discipline that results in removal from school. We have been working for some time to address the fact that our African American students are suspended and expelled at disproportionate rates. Almost 60% of our students who are suspended or expelled are of African American descent, while they only make up 32% of our students. Clearly, we have more work to do in this area. While our graduation rates have steadily increased for all groups based on student tracking data from the National Student Clearinghouse, we know that the proportion of our students that go on to either a 2- or 4-year college in the first 6 months has been flat over the past 5 years. Additionally, on this chart, we can see that GRPS is below several comparable Michigan districts and the state when it comes to college enrollment 6 months after high school graduation. Currently, there are no similar data for students entering career education programs, jobs, or the military. We gathered input from broad groups of stakeholders across the community, including students, parents, staff, and community leaders from the business, faith, nonprofit, government, and higher education organizations. On this slide, you can see common areas mentioned as strengths of GRPS and those where we can continue to enhance our work. Strengths include community partnerships, community pride and support, teachers and staff, school choice programs, general academics, innovation, parent engagement, facilities. Opportunities for enhancement include employee hiring, orientation, retention, and support, inequity in funding and resources, issues of racism, diversity, and inclusion, barriers to student success, perception of a 2-tiered system, parent engagement, defining student success, college and career preparation, administrative culture, and challenges to partnerships. We have formed an internal GRPS equity team that has been working over the past several months to craft a vision of equity in our school district. What you see here represents our overall equity vision and specifically what we wish for our students. This is in draft form and we welcome your comments during the discussion today. Now I'm going to share the draft of our strategic plan framework. This was developed by an inclusive representative group of over 100 community members, including our students. After reviewing the information I just shared with you, this group identified what they considered to be the critical areas of success for our students that should guide our strategic plan over the next 5 years. While we will continue to improve and monitor all areas of student success, these 6 have emerged as the most critical opportunities based on the data and stakeholder input that must be addressed in order to achieve our equity vision. They are not in priority order, they are all equally important, and they do build upon one another. Increase literacy proficiency. Increase math proficiency. Reduce academic disparities for Black and Latino students. Reduce Black students' exclusionary discipline. Increase student empowerment, belonging, and agency. Increase successful transitions from high school to college and career. Through this inclusive process, we also identified 5 strategic themes. These 5 strategic themes and the corresponding objectives represent the most critical areas within the work of the school district that must be designed or enhanced to achieve our priority outcomes. Strategic theme number 1, meet holistic student needs. The objectives connected to this include increase student engagement and influence, empower families to support student needs, expand direct supports and services aligned to student academic and non-academic needs. Strategic theme number 2, optimize and value all school options. This is simply ensure that all GRPS schools are valued options for families. Strategic theme number 3, ensure equitable access and outcomes. The objectives connected to this theme create equitable systems to distribute resources to schools based on student needs and incorporate an anti-racist and inclusionary practices that advance student participation in programs and opportunities. Strategic theme number 4, enhance curriculum and program opportunities. The objectives connected to this theme ensure all students experience an aligned, culturally responsive curriculum at or above grade level. Ensure curriculum and academic programs align with college and career readiness. And 3, expand applied, hands-on opportunities that align to students' interests. And finally, strategic theme number 5, cultivate and engage productive, more diverse workforce. The objectives connected to this theme increase effectiveness of hiring processes with an emphasis on diversity, and create a culture that demonstrates the value of all employees. After we receive input from our community and ensure that these priority student outcomes and strategic themes provide the proper direction for our strategic plan, we'll move forward with defining specific initiatives, the major projects that we will implement to achieve success in these areas. Now it's time for your input. You have the opportunity to respond to these 5 questions about the draft equity vision and the strategic planning framework. What works well about this strategic planning framework, including the equity vision statement? What, if anything, you disagree with these documents? Other than strategic initiatives and performance metrics, which will be designed in the next phase, is anything missing? Within each strategic theme, what ideas do you have for approaches to support the priority student outcomes? What would increase your ability to shape what happens in your community schools? Each group will have a facilitator to keep the conversation moving and a note taker to ensure that all comments are captured. We do have a few shared guidelines to ensure conversations tonight are productive. Our purpose is to hear all viewpoints, not to reach consensus. Respect different points of view and assume goodwill. Manage time and participation in the conversation to allow everyone to be heard. Avoid any reference to specific individuals. Consider district-wide issues rather than individual cases. Focus on what's best for students. Represent your individual perspective. Don't speak for others. Our facilitators will keep the conversations moving to ensure that all topics are covered. If you have more to say than what the time allows, please use the chat to offer additional thoughts, or you can email communications@grps.org to share additional thoughts. We will collect those and add them to the notes after the meeting. You can also use the chat to submit any questions that you have that were not addressed today. We will adjourn directly after the discussion groups, so please adjourn after your group conversations. Thank you so much for your time and your input.